Hello there, and thanks for downloading the Farming Today podcast from BBC Radio 4. I'm Kaz Graham, and in this edition, river temperatures are reaching the mid-20s, leading to the deaths of fish and other aquatic life. And a government-ordered cull of cattle in County Tyrone that's left farmers furious. We'll fill you in on the details of that just a little later. First, though, it is the season for eating salad, and we're looking into the UK's commercial salad production all this week. Growing crops under glass can give you more control over their environment. Things like temperature, humidity, and even the number of hours of light can be controlled artificially. But it doesn't rain inside a greenhouse. Well, nor outside a greenhouse, you might observe at the moment, but that's not quite the point. So all the water given to crops has to come from somewhere. And with our current unpredictable weather, finding enough water is becoming more of a challenge for farmers. Westlands UK produced nearly 150 specialist plant varieties, including microgreens and samphire, in huge glasshouses in the Vale of Evesham in Worcestershire. General Manager Peter Taylor has been showing Charlotte Smith around and also explaining how they manage their water.
So here in front of us we've got a collection of a few different microgreens. So we've got garlic chives, chervil, dill, fennel, sorrel, tarragon. So they're all grown hydroponically as microgreens. So we're looking for the cotyledon and the first true leaf of the plant, and then we would harvest that crop, package it and send it out to the food service industry. They can be used to deliver loads of flavour in small leaves, very decorative. So at the moment they're used in starters, salads as additions to jazz up the salad, decorative on desserts, and a growth industry at the moment for us is the drinks industry as well.
Oh really?
So looking at adding leaves as decorative additions to cocktails, say, and flowers, or actually as ingredients into non-alcoholic spirits, those sort of things. So there's lots of different options.
Now, they look like they're being grown on bits of wet mouldy carpet, if I'm absolutely frank.
That's probably doing it a little bit of a disservice, that is.
What is it?
So what you have there is, it's a capillary matting, so it's being able to hold water and deliver it to the plant at the right time. And it's made up of recycled fabrics from the primary manufacture of clothing.
I feel bad that I was so dismissive of it, because that's clever, isn't it? And it's really wet. Does that retain the moisture, or is it being wetted all the time?
Yeah, so you can see the pipe here at the front of the bench. That's where we fill up the small plastic tray that is in the bench, which will mean that the mat that we've seen stays wet. The roots and the seeds of the crop that we're trying to grow will stay wet, but the top, the green part, the leaves, they stay dry. And that's a key factor in having really good shelf life in our harvested product, is we don't water it from above. We keep the roots and the seeds wet, and we keep the leaves dry.
Where do you get your water? That's something which we've been talking about such a lot this summer, as farmers' abstraction licences have been limited or taken away. We're looking at hosepipe bans for consumers.
So we get our water from 3 different sources. One of them is watering crops. So we water crops, and we catch all the water that we use to water our hydroponic crops. We catch it, we filter it, we treat it with UV to make sure that it's clean, and then we would use it again. We also, as a glasshouse business, we catch an awful lot of rain. Now, the gaps between rainfall gets longer, so we have a plan to be able to store more water. And our final source of water is the same as we use at home, it's potable water. And so we have to be really water efficient, because otherwise there just isn't enough water to go round. Although we can use mains water, it doesn't mean we should.
Peter Taylor, and that huge growing operation at Westlands was featured in a recent episode of On Your Farm here on Radio 4. You can hear more of it on BBC Sounds. Just search for BBC On Your Farm. Well, as Charlotte mentioned there, rain has been in short supply. This July's weather was record-breaking, the driest July ever recorded in both England and Wales, and with no significant rainfall since some rivers are flowing at exceptionally low levels. Shallower rivers heat up more quickly, and the water temperature in some rivers is far higher than usual, as high as 28 degrees Celsius in the River Test in Hampshire. These high water temperatures can be disastrous for fish and other aquatic life, which rely on a steady supply of cold water. There have been reports of several incidents of fish deaths. Well, Mark Owen is head of fisheries at the Angling Trust, and I asked him how many fish may have died.
That's an extremely difficult question to answer because we don't monitor every dead fish. So it'll only be by people, anglers, walking the riverbank, spotting dead fish, or the Environment Agency fisheries officers spotting dead fish, that you actually see them. But an awful lot won't be floating dead to the surface. They'll be dead under the surface. So we really won't know until next year for all species when we look at how the spawning's going and what the fish numbers are. And probably only next year we will properly get a handle on the damage that's been done this year.
Can you explain, Mark, why hotter water in rivers can cause fish deaths?
So it's a mixture of things. Don't forget, these are used to living in cold or cool waters. If you take Atlantic salmon, they thrive on cold, cool waters, and they can only take a certain warming temperature and before it impacts on them. If you take other fish species, they're more tolerant, but generally river fish are used to and have evolved to live and thrive in a certain river temperature. So when you get low dissolved oxygen levels in rivers, then that makes the fish lethargic, and they just go down to the bottom of the river trying to find the coldest possible space they can with the maximum oxygen. But in what we've been seeing over the last 2 to 3 months, there isn't a lot of that left.
And how serious is the situation this year? I mean, I know that you were at the National Drought Group meeting on Monday. What kinds of things have you been hearing?
What we're seeing is temperatures warming up. We had nearly 28 degrees on the River Test, which is unheard of. And it's not just the fish either, it's the invertebrates, everything that lives in our rivers, whether it be white-clawed crayfish to amphibians. They're all being impacted by the hot weather and the hot rivers.
There have been, well, a lot of deaths on the River Wensum in Norfolk, haven't there?
There has, and that was a particular issue when they had a hot, dry spell, and then there was thunderstorms. That caused runoff. There's oxygen crashes when you get that pressure drop, and that all impacts on the river. And if you look forward, if we start getting more of this runoff, pollution runoff, whether it be from caked roads covered in petrol and oils, that'll all be drained off into rivers and streams and will cause algae blooms. It will cause an awful lot of fish deaths. But with these low water levels, we also see saline incursions coming up rivers, and that salt water is moving into the freshwater environment. Again, that's impacting our rivers and fish.
And what about fish farms? What kind of impact will the lack of rain be having on them?
Well, most of them will be abstracting water to fill their lakes and their ponds where they're keeping fish. So they'll be impacted because abstraction is tightly controlled now by the Environment Agency. So their permits, if they're in particularly low rivers, will be limited. So the amount of water they can abstract to keep their fish farms going will also be limited.
What's going to happen in the future? How well will rivers recover from this?
If you're talking about the near future, if you're talking about what we're seeing this summer, there is always an ecological delay in recovery. We still haven't recovered from 25 and 22 drought situations with some species. So it will take some time to recover. And of course, we don't know what's going to happen next year, do we? This winter, we had flood situations, we had heavy rain, good groundwater recharge, etc., etc. But look how quickly that's gone, even though we had that last winter. So who knows what's going to happen this winter and next year, but we're hoping and praying for what I would call a good year next year, where we see plenty of water, and so that ecological recovery can start to happen.
Mark Owen from the Angling Trust. Now, feelings are running high amongst farmers in Northern Ireland over a cull of 51 cattle that took place back in June. The cull was carried out at 5 Mile Town in County Tyrone by a humane slaughter team deployed by the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, that's Daera, as a final resort after a court order directed that the farmer they belong to should be deprived of the ownership of all farmed animals because of a previous animal welfare conviction. Now, this cull has proved extremely controversial. It's claimed it was visible to members of the public, and some question why the animals had to be killed at all. Hundreds of farmers protested outside Stormont, home of the Northern Ireland Assembly, earlier this week. Louise Cullen is BBC Northern Ireland's farming and environment correspondent.
This story actually begins back in 2022 when inspections on this farm raised serious concerns, and those concerns culminated in the farmer being convicted in May this year of a number of animal welfare charges. He was also disqualified for life then from anything to do with keeping animals. That led to a deprivation order. All the animals on his farm, the cattle, had to be disposed of. He had 2 weeks to appeal or to make arrangements for having the animals removed, and he was given an extra week on top of that. But 51 animals remained spread across 3 farm sites, and it was determined that they should be destroyed. On Monday the 29th of June, some people witnessed some of the operation, and that led to the Agriculture Committee being recalled to Stormont for what was described as an unprecedented emergency meeting. While that meeting was happening inside Stormont, there was a large protest outside by farmers, including Andrew Keys, who said he witnessed the cull.
I think to let it be washed under the carpet as such just would be a disgrace, the cruelty that went on and what happened that day. I don't think it should happen, and we need to stand up against it and be seen that it can't ever happen again, and people has to be held accountable for what did go wrong.
Inside the building, the Minister, Andrew Muir, and 2 officials were quizzed by the Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs Committee. There has been a strong public reaction to this cull, and Andrew Muir told the committee that inaccurate reporting and commentary had led to threats being made against him and his staff.
The wave of misogynistic, sectarian and homophobic hate, threats and intimidation against both officials and myself is despicable and deeply concerning. The fact that I've now received a death threat is nothing short of a disgrace. This is unacceptable at any time and in any department.
Why did these animals have to be killed? Couldn't they just be moved to a different farm?
What the committee members were told is that this was a court order, and by giving the farmer the extra week on top of the 2 weeks grace period, they were potentially in breach of that court order. They had been working with him for a lengthy time to try to get the animals removed. There was a point at which the process was halted. A farmer arrived and offered to buy a number of the animals, but then those animals couldn't be rounded up. They ended up escaping onto a road. Humane slaughter was the only option, and that was because of the challenges the officials faced. Deputy Chief Veterinary Officer Gemma Daly outlined what they were.
Getting them in and the stress of trying to get those cattle, which are over 3 sites, over extensive open ground, rough terrain that has no fencing. These animals are handled by one keeper, and they are semi-feral. When strangers appear, try and round them up, and their staff have experience over the year dealing with this welfare case where they have had to try and handle the cattle in previous times and have real difficulties, and it just adds to the stress of those animals.
So what happens next then?
Well, the Minister has announced an external review into what happened here. There was also a very full gallery for the committee hearing, people in the room. John McClenaghan, President of the Ulster Farmers Union, condemned the threats made to the Minister and Daera staff. He said farmers were frustrated.
It is really important that we have a competent authority in the form of Daera. We realise that we need to work with Daera officials for the betterment of our industry, but we need to have a competent authority. We need to have an authority that farmers have trust and have faith in, and the simple reality is that has been lost. The challenge now is how do we get that back again?
John McClenaghan from the Ulster Farmers Union. And that's all from us for this morning. I'm Kaz Graham, the producer is Rebecca Rooney, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.